Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evolving Lawyer Series. My name is Lois Chuku, and today we'll be breaking down commercial contract drafting with a focus on introductory clauses. If you're new here, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that other lawyers can see it. So we'll be delving right into it. The aim of this is to examine the introductory clauses of the commercial contract and also to explain why they matter in drafting and reviewing of agreements. The objectives at the end of this session, you should be able to identify the structure and the core components of the commercial contract. Also understand the legal principles that influence drafting choices. You should also be able to review these contracts confidently using a step-by-step checklist. And lastly, spot common drafting or review issues early before they even become risks. So let's move over to the structure of the commercial contract. Before we delve into it, I want you to know that a contract is like a building. If you know the path, then you'll be able to construct it. That's how you should see it. I divided a contract generally into four major parts: the introductory part, the core or the operative session, the risk or the ancillary, and the administrative slash closing part. Under the introductory part, which we'll be focusing on today, we have the front page, the cover page, the parties clause, recitals, definition and interpretation session. Under the core, we have operative clauses, conditions, precedents, payment terms. We have under risk, limitation of liability, indemnity, other subsidiary or ancillary obligations. Then under the administrative, we have boilerplates and schedules, appendices, execution. Next, let's delve into the cover page and parties clause. Now, the cover page, it's that first page in the agreement that states the name of the agreement. Is this a SARS agreement? Is this a vendor's agreement? Is this a supplier's agreement? And then it also lists the parties involved. So, for instance, you can have suppliers agreement between ABC Limited in brackets the supplier and XYZ Limited in brackets the client, as the case may be. Now, parties clause. This clause is important, and I am surprised that a lot of people do not take this clause very importantly. They kind of like take it for granted. In the parties clause, it contains the full legal names, the registration numbers, and the addresses. That's very important. Also, the legal status of the parties, the contracting parties, the jurisdiction of incorporation. This is important, especially when you're dealing with cross-border agreements. You need to know the jurisdiction, the company, where this company is located, where it was incorporated, capacity and authority to enter the agreement. The company needs to have that capacity if you're using a company. And also, who is signing? The individual needs to be someone that can sign. This is very important, guys. Whether the affiliates or group companies are intended to be bound. So sometimes you see an agreement that just says affiliates, and then you are not even sure that these affiliates are intended to be bound by this agreement or not. It's very important. Stay with me. Consistency with defined terms across the contract. So you're going to tell us in the parties session who XYZ would be referred to subsequently, who ABC would be referred to subsequently. So if you don't know who is in the room, you can't make the deal work. That's just how it is. So let's look at a sample clause. Look at the sample clause. This supplier agreement, the agreement in brackets. Now, you'll be asking, why do we have the agreement in brackets? We're going to explain this further under the definitive session. So just bear it in mind, please. Is made and entered into on the effective date as defined below. We're also going to be dealing with this in the definitive session. Between now ABC Limited, a company incorporated in Nigeria, you get this is where we're telling you where this company was incorporated, just so you know when you're going to other clauses such as governing clauses, what will be bound. A company incorporated in Nigeria with RC number 123456 and having its registered office as you're giving the address right now. Hereinafter referred to as the client. So this is very important because in the agreement, are you going to be referring to every time you want to talk about ABC? Would you be saying ABC Limited, ABC Limited? Now you don't want your agreement to be clumsy. You don't want it to just look like it wasn't prepared by a lawyer. So you define it. You say hereinafter referred to as the client, which expression shall include its successors, assigns, legal representatives, and affiliates. Now you would ask why is A in capital letters for affiliates? This would be properly explained in the definitive section, but just to give you an understanding, this means that if we're putting affiliates here, you have confirmed from the company, you've confirmed from your clients, your party that the party that is in this contract, you've confirmed that yes, they want their affiliates to be bound by these agreements. Now, when it's your turn to review the agreement, and then you're seeing that they have put affiliates for you, let's say you're representing XYZ, and the other party drafted this agreement and puts affiliates, you need to confirm from your business, do we want the affiliates to be bound by this? If we don't want the affiliates to be bound by this, then would humbly strike this out or track it so that they can know that no, we do not want our affiliates to be bound by this. This is between me and you. Do not include my affiliates. Affiliates are like your subsidiaries, other companies. In case you're a group company, you have other companies, so you don't want them to be bound by this. Then after that, you see this next clause that says the clients and the supplier shall individually be referred to as party and collectively as the parties. So throughout the agreement, you refer to them as party or parties. So you don't have a clumsy agreement where you're saying ABC Limited, XYZ Limited, you get. That is it for the parties clause. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment section. Now, the recitals or background. What's the aim of the recitals? It's to provide context for the agreement. Why are we entering into this agreement in the first place? That's what the recital does. It explains why the parties are entering the contract. And one thing you would want to take note of while drafting or reviewing a recital is that you need to keep it factual. Avoid obligations. Do not commit your party or the other party to any obligations in the recital. It's just like giving us a history or background or context. Don't put any obligations there. It usually starts with whereas. I'm sure you must have seen it. So look at the sample clause here. It says whereas colon ABC Limited clients intends to engage XYZ Services Limited, which is the supplier, to provide software development and ongoing support services for its internal operational systems. The second, XYZ Service Limited represents that it has the expertise, resources, and personnel necessary to deliver the services in accordance with industry standards. The parties wish to set out their respective rights, obligations, and responsibilities under this agreement. So do you see? This kind of gives us a background that okay, this is what this is the context, this is why we're doing this is why we're doing this agreement. These ABC guys, they want to engage XYZ because they want them to provide software development services and ongoing support. And the other company is saying, yes, they have the expertise, they have the resources, they have the capacity to enter into this agreement. And finally, we're saying, okay, since the parties have all these things in place, then they wish to set out their respective rights, obligations, and responsibilities under this agreement. So that's the recital clause. The next clause we're looking at is the definitions and interpretation section. This is very important, guys. Very important. Please do not take it for granted. This clarifies the key terms to ensure consistency and avoid ambiguity. It also ensures that terms are interpreted the same way throughout the agreement. So the definitions prevent confusion. A shared definition is a shared understanding. If I define affiliates to mean people that entities that are directly or indirectly controlled by the party, the contracting party, let's say the supplier, And then I say they must have 50% of voting rights, 50% and above, or the ability to direct management decisions. And then the other party doesn't think that definition of affiliates applies. They want to define affiliates as those having 20% or more voting rights. Then there's a misunderstanding. That is why the definitive session, you have to take note of it. You have to pay attention to it to ensure that whatever you're defining has been agreed between both parties so that tomorrow you're on the same page. Look at the sample clause. Affiliates. I already mentioned this. Then the effective date. The date on which this agreement comes into force, being the date the last party executes this agreement. Remember when we were looking at the parties clause, I mentioned effective date and I said I was going to talk about it in this definitive session. So it's very important. I would rather in my agreement not put a particular date of when that agreement would come into force. Let's say I'm reviewing this agreement on the 31st of January. I'm not going to put 31st of January that is, as commencement date. I would rather say that this agreement comes into force on the effective date, the date that the last party would sign. So if there are two signatories to this agreement and one party signs tomorrow, let's say 1st of February, and the second party, it takes him 3 months to sign, this agreement cannot start running until the second party has fully executed the agreement. So that's why we say the effective date. It comes into force, the effective date being the date that the last party executes this agreement. That is better. It protects you because if you say it comes into effect the date of the person who signs first, and let's say we've signed first and they're expecting payments, or they'll start saying, oh, you've signed, your bill has started running, depending on the kind of agreements. That's very bad for you, bad for business. So we have to ensure that, hey, they are posting this agreement, we're posting this agreement until the other party has signed, the last signing party. That's very important. We'll delve more into it as we go further. So stay with me. Let's look at services. We're defining services. These are just few examples because I didn't want to make the slides to look clumsy. Services is the software development and support services described in Schedule A, if there's a schedule. So sometimes because, like I said, you don't want your agreement to look so clumsy, you can define these terms, give little definitions, make them concise, then explain them in detail in the schedule, in the appendix. That's why sometimes we have appendix schedules in our agreements, right? So I hope that you are able to, like, you understand these definitions and the interpretation session and why it is very important. Other things can be defined here. Any term that is capitalized in your agreement should be defined. If you're going to use affiliates, then capital letter A is there. It means that you must have defined it. I don't want to be scrolling through an agreement that you drafted or you reviewed, and I'm seeing terms that have capital, the first letter is capital, and it wasn't defined. No, it shows that you didn't do a good job. So please ensure that terms that are used in the agreement that you think, okay, when you've gone through, you look at this term and you're like, this thing can cause ambiguity later in the future. A good lawyer is a lawyer that is proactive. You're proactive, you know that this thing can cause problem. Let's define it here. We've been using this term, Let's define it so that both of us will know why this term is here. I hope this like makes sense to you. So key takeaways. I told you this session is not going to be long, and then we're almost done. Key takeaways: clarity. Use plain English. Make terms easy to understand. For real. Don't make your agreement to be verbose. Don't make your agreement clumsy. Don't make your agreement ambiguous. Don't use big terms that I have to look at dictionary because I want to review an agreement that you drafted. No, it doesn't show you're a good lawyer. It shows that you are putting your party, your clients to risk. Because if something happens tomorrow, the terms are too like vague that it will be hard to, when there's a conflict, to resolve it. Secondly, consistency. Stick to defined terms, check numbering, cross references. Make sure that you are not, if you are going to use so a term that has been defined, let's say you've defined clients, you've defined XYZ to be clients. You cannot be seen to be referring to XYZ as supplier later in the agreement. You get. So that's it for consistency. Make sure that terms are consistent. Your numbering, very important, very important. If you're going to do 1.1, then there's 1.2, there's 1.3. You can't now jump from 1.1 to 2.3. And I'm like, okay, you get. Then also look at the commercial context. This is very important, like very important. You need to understand the client's business. What is the objective? So before you review an agreement, you should even get on a call, get on a call with the business teams and ask them, what's the purpose of this agreement? What are we trying to achieve? Do you understand? So that way, when you're reviewing it, it will reflect in your drafting, it will reflect in the work you're doing to make sure that you're protecting your company's interests. Lastly, capacity and authority. Confirm that the parties can legally enter the contract. This is very important. If you're in fintech, like I am, you would know because you can go and enter and sign an agreement, review an agreement, only for you to find out that they don't even have regulatory license. So that's something else entirely. So make sure that these parties have the necessary licenses, have the approvals, the permits internally. Their objective allows them to enter this kind of agreement with you. Please do your research. Please do your research before you proceed. These are very important things that you must take note of before you proceed to engage the services of the other party and also review the agreement. Remember that clarity, consistency, and authority turn words on paper into enforceable commitments. Thank you guys so much for paying attention, for listening. I hope you loved this video. So in our next video, we'll be talking about the obligations, the rights and responsibilities, how they are structured. We're looking at payment terms, milestones, invoicing where necessary. We're looking at the conditions precedent and what triggers obligations. We're seeing how risks are allocated, limitation of liability, other obligations. So we're giving practical tips for drafting enforceable clauses. That's coming up is the heart of the contract. Thank you guys so much for paying attention, for being here with me, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.